Welcome back to Hobby Jogger Elite, and welcome back to another video where I'm talking about this shoe once again, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. This is a shoe that I have professed as my true love in the running shoe world, my favorite running shoe, and I've now crossed the 500-mile threshold in this shoe. Not a feat that is easily achieved when it comes to my running shoe rotation, as I like to mix it up a little bit. I like to buy new running shoes, switch shoes out of my rotation pretty often, so to get 500 miles and more out of a shoe in my rotation is definitely saying something in regards to how I feel about it, how often I use it, how many different ways I can use it. And this shoe through over 500 miles has been an absolute Swiss Army knife in my running shoe rotation for what I think has been over a year at this point. So this is a bit of a, I wouldn't say a post-mortem, because I am still running in this shoe, but it's at least a checkpoint in this shoe's journey that is closer to the end of the journey than it is to the beginning. So let's talk about what running in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 has been like up to and over 500 miles. So as was the case when I first reviewed this shoe, it is still 7.9 ounces, 224 grams. It is still 36 millimeters in the heel and 28 millimeters in the forefoot with a 8 millimeter drop. And it is still an absolute pleasure to run in. So we don't need to talk all about the specs, all about the technology. You know that it has a nylon plate, that it has that lovely Pebax cushioning system that is light, airy, bouncy. Some people have called the Saucony Endorphin Speed range firm in the past, but I believe that the Saucony Endorphin Speed is the softest of the speeds, but also probably the most versatile of the speeds. This is a shoe that can be used all the way from 5K speed VO2 max workouts all the way up to long run workouts for marathon training. And I have used it through the seasons, through different training blocks from those short 5K distances all the way up to training for a marathon. But it has definitely evolved a bit as it has aged into its later years, so to speak, now that it is above 500 miles. I would say it has held up pretty much everywhere, which is very impressive considering the fact that I would say in the range of Saucony shoes and in the range of the running shoe market in general, this is considered a speed shoe, which typically aren't the most durable of shoes. But the upper, not a single thing has changed about the upper since I took this out of the box when it was brand new. I would say the biggest change has been, obviously some peeling there in the toe section of the midsole, but that is pretty much just cosmetic. That is just some paint that is worn off as my legs have gotten tired through over 500 miles of running, primarily a lot of long runs, a lot of workouts, that kind of thing. And when it comes to the outsole, sort of at first glance, there's really nothing too incredibly wrong with it. And at second glance and third glance, there still isn't. It is kind of remarkable that not a single part of the rubber coverage that is on the bottom of this shoe after over 500 miles, over 800 kilometers, has gone away. You can still read the text that is engraved on this rubber section, which is absolutely amazing. So taking a look at the technology that is in shoes these days, this is probably a pattern that is pretty recognizable, pretty familiar to most people, and that is that in the latter stages of a running shoe's life, in that 300 to 500 mile range, maybe up to 600 miles, maybe up to 1,000 kilometers, usually the thing to go the most is the integrity of the midsole. And I would say that is the thing that has changed the most with this shoe, but not necessarily in like a completely negative way. When it comes to this shoe, I am no longer working out in it. And that was its primarily function when I first got this shoe. This shoe was every single long run for me, every single long run workout, every single workout that took place over like a medium long run, any workout that was between 10 and 22 miles, this was my shoe of choice. It was accomplishing VO2 max paces all the way to marathon paces very comfortably, very smoothly. This shoe is more stable. It's wider than the previous Endorphin Speeds. It's just as light, just as accommodating, with even more midsole foam in there. So it's pretty much a win-win when it comes to comparing it to the older Endorphin Speeds. And I have found it to be much more durable than the older Endorphin Speeds as well, with all of those changes. I would say with the Endorphin Speed 1, the Endorphin Speed 2, I typically got anywhere from 300 to 360 miles out of them before the midsole would just kind of compress and flatten to the point where it was making me sort of overpronate quite a bit to that inside. And this shoe has not had any of that. I am not retiring this shoe. I want to make that clear. We are at over 500 miles in it and it is not dead yet. So I would say this shoe, in my own experience, is like twice as durable as the Endorphin Speed 1 and the Endorphin Speed 2. And that is incredibly impressive. But like I said, the biggest change at this point, over 500 miles in, would be the lack of pop in the midsole. I wouldn't say it's less soft. Maybe it's actually a tad bit softer. And that nylon plate, you know, doesn't have quite as much rigidity, structural integrity as your traditional carbon plate. So if anything, this shoe has become more flexible over time. But the more flexible a shoe becomes, it's more likely that it doesn't feel quite as poppy off the ground, quite as fast. That's sort of what makes carbon plated shoes feel fast to begin with, is the rigidity and the difficulty in flexing that carbon fiber plate. Whereas with these nylon plate shoes, they're a bit more flexible, they're a bit less harsh on your Achilles, your calf, everything in sort of the lower part of your leg in general. But that also leads to the softer material in the plate being more vulnerable to aging poorly and becoming more flexible over time. So I would say I don't use this as a workout shoe anymore. I do use it on easy runs, and I think it is perfectly fine on steady runs too. So this is sort of moved from a long run workout shoe for me, a sort of jack of all trades that is a master of all of them, to a sort of like up-tempo daily trainer at this point. And again, I'm not retiring it yet. I think it's still perfectly capable of doing some things in my running shoe rotation. That is pretty much all the update I have on the Endorphin Speeds. And my ringing endorsements of the Endorphin Speed 3s have only become more loud at this point. I would encourage you, if you can find these on sale anywhere, to pick up at least one pair, because this is a shoe that is going to work for a ton of different people who need more stable shoes, but also people who just run in neutral shoes. This shoe is going to check so many different boxes for you. So definitely check it out if you can, especially if it is on sale, which it probably will be as we approach 2024, as I'm sort of seeing different shots, different pictures of the Endorphin Speed 4 on the internet, which I will put on the screen here. It looks like it's going to be a pretty awesome shoe along with the Endorphin Pro 4. And I would imagine, similar to what's happened before, when the new Endorphin Speed comes out, the previous iteration goes on an insanely deep discount to the point where I've been able to get the Endorphin Speed 2 since the Endorphin Speed 3 has been out on multiple occasions for less than $70, which is like an insane bargain. I would imagine that the Endorphin Speed 3s will be on a pretty steep discount in early 2024 or spring of 2024, when it looks like the new Endorphin lineup is going to release. And at that point, you are going to want to get Endorphin Speed 3s if you haven't tried them already. So that is all I have to say about the Endorphin Speed 3 at over 500 miles. I'm going to keep running in the shoe, and we'll see when it gets retired here in the near or far future. Who knows? We'll see. But that's been all for Hobby Jogger Elite this time. We'll catch up in the next episode. Peace.